We'll get started here shortly, folks. Doesn't look like anyone else is on there. Oh, hi, Carla. We will get started shortly, or is this Nico?
It's Nico.
Ah, it's you again. Hi.
Hi.
Bear with us. We'll be getting started here in just a second.
Hello, we'll be starting shortly. A few issues. There's your cameraman, Zach.
Yeah, I will do that. Oh, I can give him a tour. We're rolling. Yeah, should be good.
On to seeing our front room. We do have our bikes out front now the weather's turned. But we do have our selection of refurbished bikes that we have for sale, and a variety of accessories and parts for bikes. Let's go on back. To get some people on the road this year, so that's exciting. But today we're going to talk about how to personalize your bike and how to get the most out of it for the kind of riding that you're doing. I brought a selection of bikes that I have to illustrate some of this, and then I have some photos that we can show you a little later. I think we had seen this bike earlier in the series. It would be a traditional road bike. Set up these bikes aren't always most effective for people and their day-to-day riding, so we'll talk about some ways to make them more comfortable. We also have an old mountain bike. Have a bit of work too. You can kind of see pretty traditional with the real stretched out position with the straight handlebar. How we have for this. Here we have my city bike that my kind of. Anyone who's ridden a bike or has been given a bike, knows that every bike isn't going to work for everyone. A lot of times you have bikes that are designed for a real specific purpose, and that may not be the purpose that you're using the bike for. A lot of times on the mountain bikes, for example, especially the vintage ones, they really give you a stretched out position, a real wide handlebar to give you a little more control. And that's not really going to be totally comfortable for everyone in the daily riding. So the first thing I did with this bike, when I started to get ready for the day-to-day riding, is I actually switched out the cockpit here for something that would get me a little more upright and give me a little room in the front for a basket. So something like this can be a pretty easy fix. A handlebar like this will also take the same kind of shifters and brake levers. I'll just and switch these right over to this guy. And for a long time, I had this one set up with the basket in the front as well. And that, got me through a lot of times. So this would have had knobby tires originally. And what I did is I switched it out to a smoother tire that allows me to roll a little bit faster, make it a little bit quieter, and a little more in tune with the kind of riding that I was doing on it. There's a couple other details that are easy to do on any kind of bike. Most bikes will have a water bottle cage. I usually use sort of stainless steel ones that don't really fit great in a traditional water bottle cage. So I just got one that would fit my preferred bottle a little bit better. It's always fun to give some flair to your bike. This is kind of your traditional fluorescent flag. This is an item called a safety pizza, and it comes with the toppings separate, so you have a chance to, if you're vegetarian, you don't have to put the pepperonis on. But that's something that I've gotten a lot of comments on just riding down the street, and so that's kind of fun. So as far as customizing the bike, you're going to kind of start with your position on the bike. The other thing that you can do to add a little bit of spice is, once you kind of run the cables and housing, traditionally the housing was just black. It's pretty boring. There's many colors of cable housing, a veritable rainbow, and this isn't even all of them. So, in some cases, I think I have a picture of this bike where I had set it up with, with blue housing. One could do yellow, of course. And so that's a real easy way to add a lot of interest to your bike and make you feel a little special about it. All of our bikes are unique, so just like the people that ride them, and this is one way to kind of show that off. In some cases, you can do the alternating color, like I did on my road bike here. I kind of went with the matching color. The paint job was already bonkers, so I didn't really feel like I needed to go too nuts with the extra color, so I just kind of went with the yellow. On this one, I had a little bit of fun with the handlebar tape. So just like you can get grips in different colors, this handlebar tape has pizzas on it. So this one has a little bit of fun going on as well.
Yeah, can I jump in real quick?
Please.
So the water bottle cage, just kind of like as we age, we can't bend over as much. Some of you may want to know that there are handlebar mount water bottle cages. So if you don't want to have to reach way down here to get your, where they're typically mounts are down here on bikes, on the older bikes, you can actually put the water bottle cage up here on your handlebar. You may not want to put it here because you can whack your knees when you're standing up. So just something we carry to keep in mind. And also, I just wanted to set things up a little bit for today's class. The whole reason we're doing this is because new bikes, as you probably know, are in very high demand and very low supply. So we're thinking that a lot of who may not have, well, you may go to a bike shop like ours and just find that the selection is very limited for a new bike. And so taking one of your older bikes that's in your basement or garage and repurposing it, doing something different with it, making it more comfortable, turning it into
the video. I'm also doing this.
riding more, that's the point of the class. So I'll give it back over to Aubrey.
Thank you for clarifying. Yeah, the way that you can kind of keep that old bike on the road and update it to how you're going to be using it. So after riding this bike for a while, I ended up kind of doing the same thing with this bike and wanted to do something a little more exciting on the mountain bike. Sort of a pseudo new category of bikes. They're calling them gravel bikes, which is essentially a road bike that you can ride on dirt roads or gravel or trails or whatever. So for this bike, I actually switched it out and put more of a road style handlebar on there. I took care to get a higher stem. So even though you have this position on the bike that you're used to on a road bike, rather than leaning way over, you can see that the handlebars are actually as high as the saddle or higher. So this now is a totally different bike. It's going to allow me to do a lot of different kind of riding and longer rides because I'll have a variety of hand positions. I keep the big wide tires for traction and for cushion on those rough roads. And one thing to consider on bikes when you're switching from one style of handlebars to the other is what are you doing with your brake levers? What are you doing with your shifters? So this style of handlebar will take its own kind of brake lever that allows you to activate the brakes from here, but also from up in this position. One of the big things when you're switching to these kind of bikes is having to come up with these kind of bars is coming up with a solution for the shifters. Traditionally, the shifters are going to be mounted on the handlebar here. In this case, I went to sort of like the retro bar end shifters, which will allow me to still shift, while having my hands on the handlebars. Typically, road bikes are going to have the shifters down here, if you can see that. And I don't mind it so much, but a lot of people like to have the controls a little closer to hand so they don't have to take their hand off the handlebar while they're shifting.
What do you think about the newer style shift on that point of drifter, as we call it?
Yeah. So on most of the modern road bikes, they're going to have the shifters built right into the brake levers here. So we operate the brake levers here, and then we can operate the shifters from that secondary lever. I think it's great. It does keep you up on the handlebars the whole time. You can kind of shift from a couple different positions. They are a pretty expensive part of the bike. In many cases, maybe the most expensive single part. They're way out on the end of the handlebar, which is the most likely place to get damaged in a crash. So sometimes the maintenance can be a little bit daunting because of all the little gears and springs that are inside there. It does take a little bit of extra care to make sure that they're going to work over the long term.
This is something we can add to a bike.
And certainly something we can add to a bike. They do make these down to 7 speeds. This is a 10-speed shifter. They do make them down to 7 speeds, so I could do something like this even on my mountain bike, which I may someday decide to do. So the difference between having your bike set up like this is that you are able to take advantage of the wider tires. In many cases, you can even add a fender to that. A lot of times the old mountain bikes will have mounts for racks so that you can accessorize it with either a rack on the back or make use of the front for a basket. What makes this a little more usable than your traditional road bike is that you are going to be limited by your tire size. You're going to be basically stuck with a skinnier tire, which is going to feel a little bit faster. It's not necessarily faster, but it won't take up as much of the road imperfections and bumps as a wider tire would. A bike like this is also not going to have any mounts for fenders, and you aren't really going to have room to run those fenders as well. What I have done with these kind of bikes, though, if you like the quickness and the lightweight of a road bike, you can turn it into like a fast kind of townie by just replacing the handlebars with something like this. And I've ridden my bikes like this as well. It does require the different brake lever, and then you come up with some sort of a handlebar mounted shifter. But that way you're getting really the position of a much more upright bike, like a hybrid, but you're still maintaining the lightweight and kind of the quick feeling of a road bike. So this is something that's really fun to do on some of these old road bikes if you want to keep that zippy kind of a feeling to it.
Fenders that you can't add to an old road bike, or did you talk about that?
Well, they do have, they do have some fenders that you can add to these kind of bikes. Usually they'll mount to the side of the fork blade, and they're not going to be very full coverage. They'll usually just go in the back here. And for the back, instead of coming all the way to cover the whole tire, they're just going to kind of be in this back part. They also make like back scratcher type fenders that will clamp around the seat post and just stick out here to kind of prevent that rooster tail of road grime from splashing up onto your back. There's always workarounds. You can use hose clamps for racks or something, but I prefer to kind of keep the bikes kind of pure, more pure to their design, other than your riding position, which is easy enough to change around. So as far as ways to kind of dress up your bike, once you've kind of gotten this stuff done, I did mention this safety pizza. I've done on a lot of bikes using reflective tape, and you can get reflective tape in a lot of different colors, not just red and white, but green and orange and blue. And I've definitely dressed up some bikes. Actually, this one has a little bit of reflective tape on it as well. I just kind of did it in the same color. But I've done it on some bikes. On a red bike, put red tape. On a blue bike, put blue reflective tape. And that's something that you can get as wild as you want or be as subdued as you want, but then it will give you an added amount of visibility and safety when you're riding at night. So those are ways, aside from just a sticker, that is also a lot of fun to do for your bike. The reflective tape is a good way to add something to your bike and have it be real practical to improve your safety. As far as the touch points on a bike, you have your handlebars, your saddle, and your pedals. Traditionally, road bikes had come with sort of a toe clip and a strap. Modern bikes are generally coming with a clipless pedal, which is a very small pedal that you have a special shoe to step in. For a bike you just want to jump on and ride, those pedals aren't necessarily the best option. But you can always go to a traditional flat pedal. This one's actually giving you even more surface area than what would have been on a mountain bike to begin with. And I have a similar pedal on my daily truckster as well. Saddles always tend to be a point of contention for people. Many saddles are narrow, fairly hard. So getting something that's a little bit wider can be really helpful, and something with a little more padding can be good. Some people really like a saddle with tons of padding. I don't prefer those myself. And so sometimes it's a little hit or miss what kind of saddle is going to work for you. This saddle in particular has sort of cutout here. And the idea of that is to alleviate some of the pressure on that soft tissue. The other thing to consider is a bike with a lower handlebar position. You'll often have a narrower saddle just because of the angle of your body. Your legs are working in this plane, and you don't want to have a lot of extra saddle rubbing against it. The more upright you're getting, the more weight you're going on your backside and the less weight on your hands, the more helpful it is to have a wider saddle. So that's why a lot of times those big upright beach cruisers will have a very large saddle, because really all of your weight is on the saddle. Once you've got your touch points taken care of, your riding position taken care of, the tires for your intended purpose taken care of, and you've already completed all of your flair, whether it's stickers or cable housing, your bar tape colors, then all that's left to do is enjoy your bike. I do have some pictures that we have set up that we'll be able to show you guys, kind of showing you some more examples of some of these same customizations on some bikes. I want to make sure that if anyone had any questions, feel free to just put those in the chat, or if we have our mics on, just blurt them out and we can answer those as best we can.
Yeah, this is Tim. Saddle covers we do not carry, except for some really lame ones that are more for marketing purposes that we got from another department on campus. We have saddles that are very, very, I'll start the video here so you can see who's talking. This is Tim. Hi. So yeah, we've got saddles that are very cushioned and very, you can turn
Stop the video.
off. We're not stopping, we're just, yeah, I don't really care to be pinned, but I guess I can. Yeah, so we've got a great variety of saddles right now, so come on in and take a look. Mirrors that work for road bike. Yes, we have a selection of mirrors for road bikes, both for the old school style or the kind that we now refer to as brifters, which the brake shifter is combined into one lever. So let me just switch over to the presentation that are just so that Aubrey can go on and talk more about different types of bikes and like before and after type illustrations.
So we had used this picture on the commuting classes that we had done. This is Laura, and you can see she has a kind of a vintage steel bike, the mixedy style, which allows you to get off and on easily. And she's outfitted it with the even higher handlebar. Fenders, these are actually nice. They're full coverage fender with the all the way down to the mud flap. And then she's got a rack with her collapsible baskets. So she's ready to go.
Space bar.
To advance.
Yeah. Arrow.
Oh, there we go. Click on the screen. This is a similar kind of a bike, a mixedy. This one we also set up with some upright handlebars. You can kind of see in the background, they have a horn on there, an auga horn, I like to call them. And what's nice about this one is they actually have their shifters mounted up here. So normally they would have been down here, but a lot of these upright bikes will have the shifters mounted a little closer to hand. It's got a rack and a little bit nicer tires. You can see here the motto, upright, not uptight. And that's what you can do to your bike as well. So this is a similar style of frame. This one's set up, with the drop handlebars. You can see how high these handlebars are compared to the saddle. So this will allow, I'm trying to remember if this was a him or a her, but it will allow them to ride this bike really comfortably. Again, have the shifters mounted here to allow you to shift, with your handlebars, hands still on the handlebars. And this one is set up to accept a little bit wider tire and actually a wide range of gears. This one's got that triple crank in the front to give you the really low gears. Looks like,
Just want to interject if I can. So the older bikes from up until the 80s actually had a lot of room for putting fatter tires on these frames. They were made with much more room for fatter tires and fenders. So if you're looking to update something and put fatter tires on it, those are excellent candidates to make more comfortable. Then from the 80s forward, they started making the frames very, very tight, like everybody was a racer. So just wanted to point that out.
so this is another one, similar style. Oh no, what happened?
Use the arrows that
There's no arrows. Oh, there we are. So this one, similar idea, the mixedy, low standover, stem mounted shifters. This one's really cool because they went with the yellow tires, and it's actually a perfect match. So if you like yellow, this would be an awesome bike. No one can say they didn't see you. So this is another way to customize your bike without getting too wild. So this is a pretty traditional road bike. It's got the shifters here. This one was kind of customized for its user with a comfy saddle. It looks like maybe the stem is a little bit taller. So not only is it taller this way, it also has less reach. So this allows the handlebars to get closer to the rider, preventing you from leaning over too far. This one looks like it does have a nicely mounted rack. It has the eyelets here, and then it's mounted securely to the frame here. Yeah, this looks like a real fun ride. It does have room for fenders, it would appear, and it's got the little bit wider tire. This rider had decided to stick with the toe clips, which some people really enjoy. But just I'm making a couple changes here, adding a more comfortable saddle, changing your riding position slightly. And they kind of match the tires to the bar tape. Really, makes the bike stand out and makes sure that you can pick your bike out of a crowd on the bike rack.
Let me point out something. This was my neighbor's bike, actually. No longer with us, but anyway, as far as the stem is concerned, raising the stem is sometimes an option and sometimes it's not. But a lot of times on a smaller frame, especially, the stems that came from the factory were not very long, right where Aubrey's pointing. So there's a limit to how high you can raise stems. And if you reach that limit and you still need to go higher, come see us or any bike shop, and you can, there's several options that we have to make it so that we can raise it up safely to make it fit you better. So don't just willy-nilly raise that up, because we've seen that on some bikes coming in here and they've raised it so high that it's unsafe. So there is a point at which it becomes unsafe, and it's generally, again, marked right on there where Aubrey's pointing, somewhere in there, as to that safe limit. And it's also true with seat posts and so you can't go past a certain point on both the stem and the seat post. Just wanted to point that out.
Thanks for mentioning that, Tim. Usually there'll be a couple inches of the seat post inside the frame, and an inch and a half or 2 inches of the stem inside the frame. But there is clear markings that'll tell you what the minimum insertion or maximum height can be on those. So that's a good thing to know. Is this the same bike? Oh, so this is the before. Oh, okay. I see we have some before and after. That was dramatic. So yeah, here we went and they switched out to an even higher stem and what they call a mustache style handlebar. So this is gonna even bring this lower position up quite a bit higher. In this case, the shifters were also brought up to the handlebars. So now we're looking at riding position that's equal or almost equal to the height of the saddle, plus being able to do all your shifting duties from the handlebar. So this is really smart customization to a bike to allow someone to ride it, well into their later years, or for more leisurely ride on their favorite bike. Oh, that's pretty. I haven't seen this this bike before. Some nice details. This is really cool. They drilled a bunch of holes in the chainring. I guess back in the day, called drillium. Back in the day, that would have been to lighten the bike up. Now it just looks cool. Yeah, so this is actually, I'm seeing here, it's a little bit of oh, okay, this will show us a better idea about the stem. So essentially this is two pieces. There's the riser piece that comes up out of the frame, and then there's the stem part that clamps onto it. So these two things would be adjustable independently. You get a shorter stem if you need it closer, longer stem, or one that went up higher if you need it even higher. And this kind of gives you a good view of the brake levers where they're at. So your normal riding position would be here and here, and then you would just grab the brake levers like you would on a road bike. I'm a little bit sad that the black housing was used, but that's just me. What a cool bike. There's a great view of the handlebars from the rider's position. This also gives you a little better view of the stem. So this is kind of a modern style stem with the open faceplate that makes it easy to switch handlebars. And then that's just clamped onto this stem riser that goes into the traditional style of frame. And the two shifters for the front gears and the back gears are here. And then a nice wide, comfortable position for your hands.
Yeah, those handlebars I use on my daily commuter, and there's about 4 different hand positions on these, similar to a drop bar bike, but all of them are more upright, which makes it really, really nice on a longer ride, especially.
some great photos. Another photo kind of showing, the nice swoop of the handlebar, and also better look at that stem riser with the stem on there. So we can see how much of a difference this has made on a traditional road bike that would have the handlebars like all the way down here somewhere. And then, yeah, getting the shifters up from the frame is a great back saver. Yeah, Tim may have more to say about this bike. This is one of his own.
Yeah, thanks, Aubrey. So this is a classic French bike from the late 1960s that came with really skinny racing wheels. And this was just kind of a mid-grade racing bike that were made by the thousands back then, probably starting in the 50s and 60s. They would have looked very similar. And I love it, but it was kind of impractical for my rough roads that I live on and that all of us live on, I think, here in Michigan. So I took this bike and the next screen, please. I turned it into a more of a touring bike called in a classic French randonneuring style. So now, as you can see, the tires are much fatter, so that I have a much more comfortable ride on the rough roads in Michigan here. I was able to also fit in fenders. I changed a lot of things here. It's now got a triple crank set on it, so I can go up some really steep hills, whereas the old French setup, the original setup, were just 2 gears and very impractical for getting into anything hilly. And then I changed the stem and the handlebars out to be able to get it up more upright safely and get it up at my seat height. And I kept the original cables and housing because it was all in good shape. And yeah, lovely paint, added a bell and put the shifters up on the handlebars, those bar end shifters. And this has turned into my favorite riding bike after all these changes. I've ridden it many times and just love it to death. So the pedals I do change out when I go on a longer ride to a modern pedal, so it fits with my modern clipless shoes, the SPD shoes. So thanks, Aubrey.
Sure. I want to point out he has his tool roll here, so that's like his flat fix kit, whatever other tools he may decide to carry. And this is a neat feature is that he's got his pump, kind of a classic style pump mounted here on his frame. So that frees up some space from having to carry a pump in the bag. I really like his choice of the blue handlebar tape. It's very handsome with the bronze orange colored frame. And I am noticing some flair, some spoke cards. Those must have been for a certain event.
Yep.
But that's always kind of fun to do. Your favorite flyers or Pokemon cards you could do if you have a favorite, or playing cards. I usually would pick up a playing card I found on the ground and put that in my spokes for good luck. So that's always a nice way to personalize your bike a little bit and add some character. Speaking of character, this is a fella who I sold this bike to in San Francisco. He was actually a brewer at Anchor Steam Brewing there in San Francisco, kind of iconic brewer there. And we had this bike, clearly from the 80s with the fluorescent green frame, one of the classic Treks with the aluminum frame. And we just went all in with the fluorescent cable housing and then the special fluorescent bar tape. Kind of blacked out everything else, black stem, black seat post, black wheels. This was his dog, very sweet dog. But yeah, so he got this bike to ride to work, and he didn't have, he must have lived in the city, but he wanted something light and fast. But he wanted something that he wouldn't be able to mistake for anyone else's bike. And so I think with the full fluorescent treatment, he really got a bike that can be his own and is recognizable from a mile away. We have some more pictures of some bikes that we built for people in my shop in San Francisco. She was a nurse in San Francisco and needed a bike that she could ride. She had a pretty long commute and she wanted something that she'd be able to ride on her longer commutes as well as do the weekend rides. So this is a really classic frame from the very early 60s. I'm sorry, very early 70s or probably in the 60s. It had the clamp on here and actually had clamps everywhere. And it was just this really cool kind of salmon, kind of sandy color. And so we built her what is essentially a modern road bike. It has the built-in shifters of a modern road bike with the brake levers. We did put the taller stem on it to get her up closer to her saddle. I gave her a sensible range of gears. This second smaller chainring is quite a bit smaller than a traditional road bike, so that's going to give her easier range of gears. And then we were able to fit a wider tire. I think these are maybe 32 millimeter tires. So that's going to give you a lot more cushion than a super skinny racing tire. And we did went the little extra mile to find a saddle that was kind of the gray and cork color, the kind of terracotta tires, and then the gray bar tape with all the silver accents. This was such a cool bike with the chrome lugs, and really had a lot of character. This is an Italian made frame, and got this frontline worker to and from her work every day. That was a fun project. This is another one we did. This would have been traditional kind of road bike with drop handlebars. We were able to move the shifters up here and give her the nice upright handlebar. This one doesn't have terribly wide tires, but we do have the nice wide pedals. And got this one outfitted, for kind of daily use in the city. Now, the upright handlebar makes such a difference, allowing you to see your surroundings a little better and take some of the pressure off of your hands. So this is like a real quick and easy way to keep that lightweight bike more enjoyable and easier to ride, especially over those shorter distances. This would be a perfect bike to put a basket on, which is what I would probably end up doing that later. But a lovely bike. This is one of my early dual, kind of commuter style bikes. This was the bike I had basically before my truckster that I have over here. Same sort of color scheme, but this was an old mountain bike with those straight handlebars. But by putting the upright swept back bars, outfitting it, it still has some pretty wide tires. I think these were almost 2 inches wide, plus the fenders. I have a nice reflector on the back, saddle cover. I have my reflective doodads here and here. I actually have reflectors in the end of the handlebars as well. Nice big bell, a basket, and then a bag to fit into the basket. Again, my stainless steel water bottle cage. I didn't go wild with the colors, but I just kind of like the understated kind of silver and gray, but then kind of went with some reflective stuff to keep me safe. What else do we have here? So this is kind of what you're gonna, if you're just getting a mountain bike, or this is maybe a bike like you have, that maybe you're not finding as comfortable. You can see how low the handlebars are compared to the seat. Big knobby tire, which is going to be loud. Loud if you're riding on the pavement a lot. They're great off-road, but if you're not doing a lot of off-road stuff, the knobby tires can be more problematic than just a smooth kind of street tire. It's not hard to imagine. I mean, the frame is really similar to something like this. Just put some handlebars on, some smooth tires without losing any of the volume. And then in many cases, you'll still have room and mounting points for your fenders. So it's really cool to see how you can take a real purpose-built machine like this for tearing downhill and turn it into something you can really ride, in your daily life without having to put on your Lycra or your downhill armor. Man, this color is so nice. This is a bike we sold here at MSU Bikes last year. I've actually seen it in the wild a couple times, which is cool. So this is just a really basic old school mountain bike that we decided to turn into, more of this sort of drop bar style. And I actually took the gears off and just turned it into a single speed. So only one gear, no shifters, a nice wide tire. I think these are even wider than the original tires. With a nice kind of smooth, not too knobby tread that allows it to roll really nicely. Nice higher stem to get those handlebars up higher than the saddle. This one was really fun. We kind of did the whole blacked out thing, but you can see in the logos, there's kind of that drop shadow of this magenta color. So we just took that magenta color to the handlebars, and it really gives you something that's neat looking and one of a kind. And this is a fella who was just riding here in East Lansing, and he doesn't really have any hills here to go up and down, so the single speed made a lot of sense to reduce the maintenance. And while it's by no means a light bike, it kind of got some of that extra weight of the gears and the shifters off of it. Yeah, this one looks just as good riding down Michigan Avenue as it does parked here on the bridge. Okay, so this is the bike that I had showed you earlier. I actually did have it set up with the drop handlebars. In this case, I thought it'd be cool to go with the blue. There's some kind of blue on the logos here. Once I kind of got it all built up though, it just looked like Superman or Spider-Man or something. So it didn't take long for me to decide I didn't want that. At this point, I still had my knobby mountain bike tires on there, which again, great for off-road, but maybe not as good for riding to and from work or going on a long paved ride. But this is essentially what my bike will look like again once I get it sorted out, get those cables run.
So Aubrey, I got a question.
Yes, Tim.
That stem looks scary high. Tell us more about that stem and how you can get it that high and still be safe. Because we know you wouldn't ride an unsafe setup.
Oh, never. So the thing about this stem is it's just a special piece that's probably twice as long as your typical stem. Your typical racing, road stem might only be this long, which is not going to give you, that's going to keep the handlebars, way down here. So this is a commercially available stem made by a fantastic company in Japan. But so this is something I had to kind of source specifically to get my handlebars up this high. What's really nice is, in this position, I'm able to sit really upright, quite a bit higher than my saddle. And even in this position down here is going to be probably the position that the original mountain bike would have had its handlebars at. So this, still allows me to get a little bit lower if I'm going downhill or I'm riding into a headwind. But this special stem, is really allowing me to get the handlebars up to where I want them. This is kind of a road style stem that matches the angle of the top tube, which I really like. The stem that I have on there right now, you may have noticed, it has more of a rise. So the one that's on there right now, on this bike right now, kind of goes from here to here. So that just kind of softens that angle a little bit.
Another question for you, Aubrey. So that saddle looks really uncomfortable. Tell us more about how you can ride that saddle and not be in severe pain.
Well, this is kind of modeled off of a traditional leather saddle, which typically would have a mounting point here and in the back with the leather in the middle. Traditionally, the leather saddles were really hard and you had to break them in. They would kind of form to your body. This saddle is kind of like the new version of that. It's made by the same company, Brooks, out of England. This is synthetic though, so it's got like a rubber body with like a textile cover into it. It's softer than a new leather saddle, but maybe won't really ever break into be quite as soft as a real leather saddle. These really work for me though. For whatever reason, I kind of tend to prefer a saddle that's a little bit wider, but also that has less padding. I find these to be fairly comfortable for whatever reason. I don't really have a great explanation for it. Um, After years on the bike, your butt does kind of get used to whatever you're sitting it on. So part of it, I think, is just sort of breaking your body into the saddle that you prefer. Um, in some cases, on a saddle like this, if you're going for a longer ride, maybe you are wearing some padded shorts. So rather than having the padding on the saddle, you may have the padding in your shorts. For daily commuting, it might not be quite as reasonable. I would never recommend a saddle like this to someone. I always, kind of tell people that what works for me is not necessarily going to work for you. What works for your friend might not be comfortable for you either. So saddles are kind of one of those things where it's really just going to depend on what your body prefers. Any saddle is probably not going to be comfortable the first time you ride on it or the first time you sit on it. It really takes a little while, once you're riding, once you kind of put a couple miles on the bike, once you've been on the bike, a handful of times over a couple of weeks, I think you can kind of make your decision on if it's going to be comfortable or not. So that's a real personal preference on anyone's bike. And these ones tend to work well for me, so I've kind of stuck with them on many of my bikes.
So I don't need the fattest, most cushioned saddle on the planet necessarily.
It's true. Depending on what kind of riding you're doing, I have tried a really cushy saddle, and what I found is as my butt kind of sank into the saddle, it also increased the surface area, which kind of led to like more friction on my body as I was kind of moving around, because it's really, you want to think of it as a saddle that you're actively engaging in, not a seat, not like just a chair that you're sitting on, impassively. So as you're riding, your legs are moving, your muscles are moving around, and so sometimes those wide saddles allow too much surface area and too much friction. So in many cases, the more riding you're doing, probably the less padding is going to be more comfortable. For some people riding very short distances, sitting very upright with no weight on their handlebars, like if your handlebars were up here, those wide seats can be more comfortable. And there can definitely be an argument made for that. Let's see what's next.
Cool. Thanks for explaining that.
This is another one of my bikes. This one didn't really have a lot of color to go on. This is actually a frame I built at a frame building course. I just left it unpainted, so it kind of has this nice patina. Just kind of basic silver and black components, and so I went a little wild with the purple housing and the purple grips. The brake pads just come in that color, which is my favorite brake pad, but that kind of gives a nice contrast to the purple. Here's another one of those saddles, the fairly rigid type of saddle. This one's a little bit narrower than the other one. And this is a bike that's kind of geometry more like a road bike. I've had it set up with drop bars before, but I did design it with clearance for a wider tire. So this is a 35 millimeter tire that even with a pretty short wheelbase, I have clearance. I just barely have clearance down here. But this is a bike that I can really ride anywhere, dirt trails or on the road. I did simplify things with the gearing with a single chain ring and a really wide range in the back.
So if I've got the money, can you build me a bike?
Yes. I mean, sky's the limit as far as that goes. There are ways to do it. There's the simple things like the housing. Like if you're going to be, doing some maintenance to your bike and you have to change the housing because it's rusty, it doesn't cost anything extra to get the purple housing from the black housing. So some things like housing and grips, if you're replacing them anyway, just replace them with the color. Black is so boring.
Pedals too.
Pedals, yes, they make plastic pedals, composite pedals, I guess we'll call them. They come in every color of the rainbow, just like the housing. The frame, you're a little more limited by whatever color it is. Painting frames is possible, but it's not really cost effective. But hey, if sky's the limit, anything can happen. It's another shot from the bridge over here at MSU.
It's beautiful. Nice bike. You have lots of nice bikes. So we threw in a few fun ones at the end here. I'll just talk about this because this was my idea. So we've actually got a couple of these little folding bikes in the shop right now that we're restoring for a customer. And you know, folding bikes have been around for 50, 60, 70 years. And some of you may have them. They were used a lot by people who are into boating or private pilots. You know, they keep them in their planes for when they arrive to a new location. And anyway, you can actually take these old folding bikes and modernize them, or you can, you know, if it fits you, great, you know, but they're typically very small, and they did make an effort to put longer seat posts in them and get the handlebars up higher, but they were very, very flexible and kind of whippy. So if you go to the next screen, you can see how some people have updated them and made them more practical for real world riding. Now, this is one example. The guy put updated modern wheels with skinnier tires back when skinnier tires were thought to be a thing, desirable thing, which was up until maybe 10 years ago. You know, for really smooth, nice asphalt, they're nice, but on our kind of roads around here, this would you'd lose your fillings riding this at high pressure around here. But anyway, they changed up the stem and the handlebars and put arrow bars on there for being able to go faster, and modern seat post and stem. And so go to the next screen.
I just want to point out really
Oh, yeah.
quickly, he does have his pump mounted here on his frame, which
Yeah.
is cool. I'm also, as I'm looking at this, I'm noticing he only has one brake, his front brake. He has no rear brake. And while he does have gears, it took me a while to figure out that his shifter is here.
Oh yeah.
The
Wow.
shifter is mounted here on the seat post, so I don't think he'd be shifting very often, but so this one's really kooky.
He updated the whole crankset too. It's all modern.
Interesting.
That stem and handlebars similar. This one is by a famous mechanic, the red one here, by a guy named Sheldon Brown, who sadly passed away much too young. But he took the Rally 20 and really hot rodded it. And this is a very famous bike. It's kind of goofy looking, but it actually is a high performance bike and totally customized. But you know, you put the shock fork on the front to take up the road shocks, and yeah, he did a lot of updates and modification to this. Much longer seat post so that he could get it up to a comfortable height for him, and much more upright handlebar position with a modern stem that got him up to a more comfortable height there. And then the shifter he's got on there is a grip shift, kind of you twist it to change the gears. And he put both brake levers up there in a good, easy to access place for quick braking. And looks to me like maybe an internal geared hub. So he's got all of his gears inside the hub there, maybe 3 to 10 gears. You can get the internal geared hubs up to, I think, 10 speed, can't you, Aubrey?
11.
11.
Or well, actually, I guess the roll off is 14, but you
Yeah,
can
it's got
have
the
11
money.
speed Alpine.
So yeah, you can really hot rod one of these old folding bikes if you had a mind to.
You got
So-
some cool, like it looks like this is maybe a bracket for like a bag or like a basket or a bag or something that would
Yeah.
maybe clip onto the back here. There's tool pouch. I
Yeah,
just love all the color match stuff, the red rims, the red pump, the red
Yeah.
water bottle.
yeah. So if you travel, you know, this, and you have an old folding bike, or if you want to travel and rather than the other types of modern bikes that you can travel with can be, or easily, I should say, easily turned into a small package are very expensive. But if you found one of these older folding bikes, you could update it and make it a pretty nice bike with doing some of these things as a practical matter. Although I put this in here just to be kind of more fun and humorous, it's something you could actually do if you had a need to be able to fold up a bike into a small package and travel with it.
On my screen, I don't see the chat window. I don't know if people have been asking questions.
I've been following it, yeah.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Let's see what's next.
I think that may be the last image, but there might be
Maybe the
one more.
last one. So this is kind of a little bit of a flavor of some different things you can do to your bike. You know, an existing bike that you have, all the way up to, you know, something you're kind of building from scratch. You know, you can be doing things that make things more functional. You can do things that are going to make it more wild and personalized. So there's really the sky's the limit. This is probably the biggest before and after on this guide. It's nice to have those two pictures back to back.
One thing I'll mention too on customizing your bike, it's bike theft has been a big problem since COVID hit. Since supply and demand is so crazy high, well, high demand, low supply, the thieves also figured that out. And so bike theft is a huge problem. So the more you can customize your bike and make it easily identifiable, the better. Ah, hello, there he is. So keep that in mind too, that, you know, the more you can customize your bike, the easier it is to recover. Because sometimes thieves are just riding your bike around town, and if you put the word out, you know, others can maybe see them and recover it. So just one other little benefit to customizing your bike. So any questions from the audience there? We had some great questions from Regina.
How can I unpin this? Or not pin?
Nico or Vicky
Oh,
or Regina, do you have any other questions that we can touch on? Well,
This
thank
is
you,
no,
Regina.
I'm good. This has been a lot of great information.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, I think someone was asking a question. Go ahead again. Go ahead again. Vicky or Nico, did you have? I thought I heard a small voice asking a question or making a comment. Okay. Well, thanks so much for attending today and being here and being a part of this. And we'll put the recording up on the blog page about the classes, and you know, you can share that with your friends and family, or look at it later if you fell asleep while we were rattling on. Hopefully not, but otherwise, hope to see you here in the shop. We are open Monday to Friday, 10 to 5 to anyone, and we do have bikes available. We just actually got 2 different shipments of bikes today, so we now have 27 more new bikes in the box. So we'll be making a post on Facebook about the different types of bikes that we're going to be building up here, in case you are in the market for a new bike and or know someone that is. Send them our way. And we also are, you know, a full service bike shop for repairs. So if you want us to do any of these kind of modifications, you know, we're here to do those modifications that we are showing and discussing, or you can just bring your bike in and ask us what we might recommend to do X, Y, or Z. Aubrey, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Tim. A lot of great information, and a lot of great bikes in the world that can get even better. I'd encourage anyone to reach out and ask any questions, or if you want to bring your bike in and, you know, have us talk over with you what are the actual options for your bike and give you some estimates on that. It's a kind of project that we don't get to do as often as we'd like, but I think it'd be a lot of fun to get more people on their own customized bikes for the years to come. So if there's no questions, just reach out at your leisure, and we'll be here for you. Thanks so much.
Audrey.
Happy trails. Keep the rubber side down.
Adios. Bye.
Bye now.